So you've heard him on the Chaz and AJ show on 99.1 PLR. Here he is
in the
person. It is Sam Cutler, road manager and manager extraordinaire. Tour manager.
Let's get it straight.
Sorry, the guy that does all the work, the real work of rock and roll. So, Sam, the first thing I want to ask you is, you come to a show like The Vibes, and there's a much greater mixture of younger artists in with the older established artists. Did you think back in the day when you were just kind of starting off and making your way in the business that the genre of psychedelic rock and roll would hang on like it did through the Deadhead years?
Well, it is surprising in some senses, but in another sense, you know, and this applies to all kinds of music, you know, music's good. People will enjoy it. We've got third generation people enjoying the music of the 60s. You know, a lot of the people that played in the 60s were far out musicians who created some very interesting stuff back then. And, you know, continual recognition of its interest and its fun quotient, you know, doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I listen to some stuff that's really old, way before the 60s, that I think was done really well, you know what I mean? My kids, I've got two teenage boys, they keep me pretty in touch with stuff. It's a great resurgence of interest in the 60s. I mean, I think each new generation that comes along kind of rediscovers it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got a 15-year-old son, that's what he's doing. He wants to play guitar and be a guitar player, so what's he doing? He's analysing the music of the 60s, see what those guys were doing. So it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, what it does do is encourage me. I think it's great. I love this is beautiful. I've been in America for 3 months, touring around various festivals. This is a beautiful site, isn't it? Right beside the water, beautiful, and the vibe.
It vibes.
The vibe is gathered, focused, and wonderful. I'm loving it here.
Yeah. Now, how about this? Is something you could probably more relate to as a like a hands-on road guy. How about all the want to return to like the Gibson SG and the old Crybaby Wah-Wah and the old school big knobby, you know, 2-pound brick effects pedals and stuff.
Right.
They want the old sound now.
Well,
too.
I mean, I think that it's part and parcel of what we were just saying, you know. There's a certain kind of quality of music that came about in the 60s. You know, music's based on sound. You know, the sounds of the 60s were very far out. I think also, you know, people got fed up with effects. People want soul and, you know, honesty and purity in their sounds, you know, and that, you know, for that you go back to the SG, you go back to the wah-wah pedal. Far less effects and far more skill, if you like. I mean, a lot of the effects for guitar players covers up some deficiency in their technology, you know what I mean, in their technical playing, you know. So without effects, you're a bit more naked in the conference room, as it were. And I think it's, I mean, I was listening to Trucks, band.
Trucks band,
What a band, what a vocalist, wonderful. John, I can never pronounce his name, that played with Phil and Friends.
Cutler,
Yeah, brilliant, you know, I mean, great guitar players. Great guitar players don't need effects. They might have a wah-wah pedal, but not much else, you know. And, I mean, another thing that's going on is that everybody wants valve amplifiers again. For a long time, everyone went to solid state amps and all those effects you're talking about. Now everyone's getting back to the basics. I think it's nothing but healthy myself.
And you have such high quality supporting sound systems that can pick up the nuances that the old school systems really, it was like volume and power. Now the fidelity of these new suspended systems, where you can get the nuances of that 65 Fender Jazz amp, and you can actually get what the sound they want to achieve out to 100,000 people.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, you know, people want subtlety, sophistication in their sounds, you know what I mean? And like, as you say, you know, they're picking up the much more nuanced approach to music, you know. Let's face it, this isn't a heavy metal
jam
environment here, you know what I mean? It's a sensitive environment. I mean, I think another thing about the music of the 60s is the 60s, whether we, you know, approve of it or not, the fact of the matter is that people were on mind-altering substances in the 60s, and they still seem to be on mind ordering substances now.
Between that and the effects pedal, it really sounds good, right?
And I think, you know, music, people require a certain kind of sensitivity in the music that goes, you know, together with that internal brain space, if you like to call it that. You know, that people don't want heavy smashing kind of sounds. People want gentle and sophisticated sounds. So you know that if you go to different festivals, you get different kind of musical types. But you also, if you go to different festivals, you get different personality types in the audiences. You know, so you know, if you see people with purple haircuts and lots of leather, they tend to have rather loud and aggressive kind of music going on, you know. And if you see people that are like of this genre of
feathers in their hair,
lots of feathers and flowers in their hair, then everything tends to be a bit gentler. I mean, whilst I dress in black, I'm of the gentle music persuasion myself. I like it gentle and sweet, and sophisticated.
Well, we can't let you go because we just got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us a great festival story from your road days. Before the Funky Meters go on, and we both got.
Oh, right, okay. Well, I'll tell you one thing I can say. Mick's 70, isn't he?
Yes, yesterday.
He was 70 yesterday. But Mick's not got arms like me. Look at those, see?
More like Iggy Pop.
No granny flaps.
How's the belly?
Look.
You got that Iggy Pop belly there?
Here's the belly.
Oh, yes. Come on. So tell us.
Mick's getting a bit floppy around here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'll have to get back in the gym.
So what's the most memorable festival gig you had to work?
Well, I mean, it depends if you're talking about pleasure or pain. Pain was Altamont, no question, you know. That was a disaster, but I prefer to dwell on the positive. The most pleasant was at Watkins Glen, which wasn't that far away from here, upstate New York.
Our friend Keith from Premier Concerts, that was his first concert, Keith Mahler.
Yeah, well, Watkins Glen was wonderful, only 3 bands, the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers and the band, and it had 722,000 paying customers. To this day, the largest rock and roll show in the history of the music industry. So I was proud to represent all 3 bands at that show.
Oh, that's great.
So that was nice, and the music was extraordinary, the vibe was beautiful, nobody got injured, everyone was happy. And this is what, you know, it's a bit like bringing up kids. What do you want for your kids? You want them to be happy. You want them to be safe. The same, you know, if you're putting on rock and roll shows, you want people to have a good time, to feel happy and be safe and go home and have happy memories. So,
Well, we talked about Mick. How about a Jerry Garcia? Any interaction with him in your days?
Jerry and I were very close friends, and I lived in his house, you know, and shared a house with him, so I know him very well. Knew him very well. He was a wonderful man.
What was something people might not expect about him that you could offer? Did he go against the stereotype of what everybody saw him as?
Well, Jerry was a very reluctant person to kind of be any kind of spokesman for anybody. You know, I mean, Jerry was like what I call a psychedelic fascist on stage. The music, you know, very much in charge of the music, where it would go, what the vibe would be. But you know, in meetings, you know, which we had all the time, being in charge of a band, you know, you've got to make decisions. Jerry was always reluctant to be the person that made any kind of decisions. He would much rather that somebody else made the decisions.
Go with the flow, kind of.
Yeah, he'd go with the flow, and that was all fine with him, you know. But he was a lovely man, and he's sorely missed. And of course, we all loved him. All the people that worked with him, and of course, all the people who, you know, adore the man for his music. When you think about one person and the effect that they can have on a culture, the nation, the effect of Garcia has been quite extraordinary.
You can go to the
Having said that, I live in Australia, where no one's heard of the Grateful Dead. I mean, there's a few hippies. No, I mean, not relatively.
No.
Very few hippies have heard of the Grateful Dead. Very few people, rather, have heard of the Grateful Dead. This is, you know, it tends to be 60, 70-year-old hippies. They all know about the Grateful Dead, you know, from their youth, as it were. But most people who are under the age of 30 never heard of them.
Sam Cutler, tour manager to the Stars. Thank you so much for being with us. 99.1 PLR. I'm John Voket with Sam Cutler here at Gathering of the Vibes 2013.